All right, you BC 314 tweakers. I resurrected this sucker. I gave it the voltage it wanted. And I just want to tell you one of the tricks is when you take the dynamotor out, there's a ground that goes to the dynamotor. Both one for the filament and one for the B plus. Make sure both those go to ground. And I don't know which one. The filament might not be as necessary as the other one, but you can't run it like a BC348 where the power just goes to the hot. The dynamotor voltage, which you're going to put a power supply in, and the ground of a BC348 power supply doesn't really go to ground. It goes through a resistor then to ground. With this, I had to actually put the ground on the chassis ground. And what made this radio really annoying is they sprayed a coating on parts of the radio to prevent it from getting mold on it or bacteria. And that's on all the connections, on all the terminals. So like the earphone jack, when you put the earphone jack in, it might not work. You might have to scrape away that coating in certain places. Now, right now I'm running it on an earphone jack through a power transformer backwards to the speaker for impedance. Now there is a jack for going to the speaker, but it requires a more narrow or more a thinner stereo type jack. It's a special jack for this radio. It might be possible to buy it online, but anyway, I got it working. It's not as loud and sensitive as it should be, because I know I probably have a couple capacitors in the IF cans or in the RF amps that are leaky, and I'll address that. I'm going to look tomorrow and start thinking about the IF cans. These are not normal standard IF cans. They're not at 455. I don't know what frequency they're at. But at some point I got the local oscillator to come on after playing around with the grounds. See, I'm used to the BC348, which the ground of the BC348, the high voltage ground, goes to a special pin or a jack or a terminal. It doesn't go directly to the chassis ground, and it goes down to a resistor over in the audio section, and that's to make the radio have less parts, because it's going to go on an aircraft and they want to keep it light. Well, anyway, this radio is different than a BC348 in many ways, so be careful with that. It got me for a while. I was like, okay, I'm following the hot up through the radio, but when I turn the radio on or off, then my power supply don't drop. So then I knew it was a ground, and then I realized the terminal I grounded it on didn't actually go to chassis ground. It was the ground for the dynamotor. It's weird the way they do this stuff. But I just want to tell you, I did get it to resurrection. It does get several stations. On the high end, it doesn't get a strong station. On 830 Berks County, it doesn't get that one. So I'm going to go on the next band down and go up high on that and see if I can get Berks County on that one. It all has to do with some of the capacitors being leaky, and I'll tell you what I find. All right, but right now we've resurrected it. Those, I would not worry about those oil capacitors. They're 0.1s, and they're usually in the cathode bypass of a tube. And if they're bad, you could lose gain. So I could have one of them that's bad. But in most cases, what I did was I put a ohm meter from ground to positive of the high voltage on the radio, the plate voltage, and it was reading over a meg. So I knew no problem putting my power supply on it. See, oil capacitors, I did in my lifetime. I saw one that was dead shorted in a power supply in RCA, but the floor where the power supply was got hit with lightning. So the lightning hit the AC power line, and this capacitor sat across the AC power line. And when it blew that capacitor out, it blew the fuses. So that lead tech put new fuses in the supply, and it blew right away. And he come over and he's sitting down. I'm like, what's right? So we're down. And I went over there, and I think I told you the story before. It was like a 35 volt bias supply at not even 1 amp. I went in the closet, got an RCA power supply, brand new in a box, hooked it up, got the whole test area back online, and the big bosses came over, and they're like, they wanted the big giant power supply back online. I said, look, when they made those power supplies, they all made them all the same size. But that supply that went bad, basically, there's nothing inside the box. So we took the cover off, and it was like nothing, but it bothered them that I was running the whole building on a little tiny supply you could pick up with one hand. So what we did was we kept it running, and the engineers were writing off on everything. They come over each test, they wrote off that it was fine. They're happy with it. And we went down through the supply, and I saw a capacitor on the we had books with supplies in it that came with the power supply from the company. And I said, Joe, where's this capacitor here? And we had to really look for it. And it was an oil-filled capacitor, one of those cans, a big one. And I said, Joe, I'll take the clips off it. We had clip leads, pulled them off, and he put the meter across. It was dead shorted. And we took it out, and then we left those leads. Joe might have taped them up. We left them there, put 2 new fuses in, and that power supply came back up. We adjusted it, and put the company back on that power supply. And the boss I had, there was something wrong with him. I always mention he's a dandy, but every day he'd come in and check that power supply for like 6 months after that. That's how he was. I guess he didn't sleep much at home. But I think that's it. The next step for me with this is to look on the schematic and see what capacitors might be in the IF cans. I'm not just taking those IF cans apart. They do have pictures of what's inside, and I want to make sure, if I have those capacitors. I have a whole bunch of silver micas, brand new, and hopefully I have that value. But they do go bad. Remember, I've been doing these videos. When I find capacitors that do go bad, and that I can tell you that Hellcrafters SX42, every single silver mica capacitor in that radio, in the IF cans, the RF sections, everywhere, were leaky. And I don't mean a little leaky. I mean a lot of leaky. And that was really a nightmare. Go look at those videos. That's the hardest radio. This is annoying in a different way. You go to open a bunch of the sections up, and the screws have been sprayed with this stuff that prevents it from getting jungle rot. And that gets down under the screw, and then you got to use heat to heat the screw up, or the bolt, in order to take it out, to have the lid off it so you can look down inside. And that's what these sections are. They had lids on them that the screws had gotten that sealant on them. It went in the thread, so it's like having Loctite. And Loctite, we used to use. When I was in avionics, a guy I worked next to, he had a soldering iron, and instead of having a soldering iron tip, he had we got to think about that, spline bristles mounted in it, Allen keys. So if someone put too much Gliptol or Loctite on a screw, he would push this tip of the soldering iron, which had a Allen key or a spline bristle on it. He'd push it into the head of the screw, and then he would tilt the unit up so the heat would go up from the soldering iron into the unit. I don't know what he counted in his head, and then he would bring it back down, and he had another Loctite, another spline bristle or Allen key ready in the handle, and you'd hear it click, and he would snap it loose, and he would like giggle, because the other guys that worked on that job, they would send it to the machine shop, and they drill that bolt out, and then it was a whole production number. He was good. He taught me a lot of stuff. I think that's it. All right, that's it.